It's a Nespresso cappuccino. Costs over $1 to make. Crazy. Which personal finance guru should you listen to? Seems like they all have different opinions. Some of them want you to have a 3 months cash reserve for your emergency fund. Some of them want you to have a 1 year emergency fund. Some of them hate credit cards. Some of them like credit cards. So it seems like the more you listen to different gurus, the more confused you get. So which one should you listen to? The simple answer is, and it's actually not very simple at all, is that you should listen and understand all of them. But then afterwards, after you gain some knowledge in the field of personal finance, sit down and create your own rules. This is what I did, and it's been really helpful, very useful for me. And I'll go over my rules. I have 6 of them, and I'll give you my reasoning on why I came up with these rules. And again, these rules are specifically for me. It's based on my goals, and it's based on what I think I can accomplish. So let's get into it. Rule number 1 is you do not need a large cash reserve, especially because you do not want the cash reserve, the lack of a cash reserve, to prevent you from investing. I've had less than $1,000 in my own bank account several times, but I've always had the ability to pay off any emergencies. So the way I was able to do this is, number 1, I've always contributed the max to my Roth IRA. If you don't know what a Roth IRA is, it's simply an account that you can deposit money into where you can use that money to invest in a tax advantage way. So why that's important is that you can also withdraw any money that you've deposited tax-free and penalty-free, essentially acting as an emergency fund. So for 2020, the maximum that you can contribute to your Roth IRA is $6,000. So if you contribute the maximum to your Roth IRA, you basically have a $6,000 emergency fund that you can withdraw from. And this is for an emergency basis only, not saying that you should use it to fund a vacation or buy a car. Emergency only. Second thing you could do to fund an emergency is to withdraw from your large purchase fund. So if you're looking to purchase a house, if you're saving to purchase a house and an emergency comes up, you can withdraw from your house fund in order to fund that emergency. And all that means is that you have to delay the purchase of your house. And the third thing is, especially if you're fully employed with a traditional employer, is that a lot of employers, they offer severance packages. So at the company that I worked at, they had a severance pack. If you get laid off with them, they give you a severance package, which is you get 2 weeks of pay for every year that you were employed with them. So if you're employed with them for 5 years, you get laid off, they will pay you 10 weeks of severance pay. Also, especially in California, you get paid out on your unused vacation time. So what I did was that I saved up. I didn't take vacation really for the first 2-3 years of my employment with my previous company, and I saved up 250 hours of vacation time. So in the event that I leave or I get laid off, I would also get paid out on 250 hours. And also, if you're fully employed and you get laid off, you have state unemployment benefits. You pay your taxes, you paid into unemployment. There's no shame of using it if you need to. Rule number 2 is that you should invest a larger percentage of your income as you get older. So how did I come up with this? This assumes that 2 things are true. 2 conditions are true. The first condition is that if you make more money, it's easier to save in relation to your income as a percentage of your income. For example, if you make $200,000 and your goal is to save 25%, that means you're saving $50,000 and you're spending $150,000. Very easy to live on $150,000. And by the way, I'm using save and invest interchangeably because in my opinion, everything you save should be invested. So moving forward, if you make $20,000 and you want to save 25%, that means you're saving $5,000 and you're spending $15,000. It's much harder to live on $15,000 compared to $150,000. The second condition is that the older that you get, the more money you make. So assuming you're going through life the correct way, the older you get, the more skill and knowledge that you retain. So as you gain more skill and knowledge, the more money you should make. That's why the older that you get, the more money you should invest in relation to your income. So what does this mean? So my guideline is that you should, okay, I'm going to use some algebra here, so bear with me. You should invest X percentage of your income relative to your age. So for example, if you are 25 years old, you should invest at least 25% of your income. If you are 35 years old, you should invest at least 35% of your income. The way that I came up with this is that, one, I was able to do this in my life pretty easily, and I'll make a video of how I was able to do that in a future video. But so one, I was able to do that in my life, and I have a goal of retiring at 50 years old. So if you maintain these goals until you're 50 years old, you should be able to comfortably retire by then. So I actually want to retire earlier than 50, somewhere between 40 and 45, which is why I contribute more than my guideline. This is, at least X percentage of your income in relation to your age. So I try to do more than that. But I'll probably never really retire. I'll always do some form of work. But I already did the math for you. And if you want to retire by 50, which is not old, it's very respectable for anybody to retire by 50. It's actually considered very young. You'll still be able to go on big hikes, still able to travel the world. You'll still have pretty much the same interests as when you're 25. You have pretty much the same interests as when you're 50. So if you want to retire by 50, I did the math for you. These are the guidelines you should follow. So the third rule that I have revolves around purchasing a house. So the reason why I bring up home purchase is because for many people, purchasing a house will be the most important decision that they make in their lifetime. There's a lot that goes into purchasing a house. There's how much house can you afford? Should you get a 30-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage? What kind of repairs do I need to make? What kind of remodel do I need to go through? And all those things are important, but the most important thing, which is why I only have one rule for this, the most important thing is do not become house poor. So what does that mean? So someone who is house poor has a high net worth on paper, but they still live paycheck to paycheck because of their house. So the surefire way to become house poor is to sell all your other assets in order to put a down payment on your house and leverage as much as possible. So they get a 30-year mortgage and they borrow the maximum in order to get into the house, in order to qualify for that house. You don't want to do that. My guideline is to just ask to be qualified for a 15-year mortgage, and then whatever you get qualified for that 15-year mortgage, that's the maximum that you should borrow. So let's say that with your income, you can borrow $300,000 with a 15-year mortgage. But if you get a 30-year mortgage, then you can qualify for $400,000. My guideline says that you should borrow, the maximum you should borrow is $300,000. Regardless if you're going to get a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, the most you should borrow will be $300,000. The other guideline that I have to avoid being house poor is to not touch your other assets, meaning your other investments, in order to fund the purchase of your house. And the way that you do this is all in the way that you save. So let me explain. This is the way that you should think about saving. Even before you pay off your credit card debts, the first thing you should do is, if your employer offers a 401k match, you should contribute to your 401k up to your employer's match. And then if at that time you still have money left over, then you should pay off your credit card debt. After you pay off your credit card debt, if you have money left over, then you should contribute the maximum allowed to your Roth IRA. And then if at that time you still have money left over, and if buying a house is important to you, then with the money left over, you should put that towards your house fund. That way, you don't have to touch any of your other investments like your Roth IRA or your 401k in order to purchase your house. I did mention before that you can use your Roth IRA as an emergency fund, but it should not be touched in order to purchase your house. You can use, if there are any unexpected costs in relation to purchasing a house, then yes, you go back to your Roth IRA, take money out to fund the emergency, but it should never be used as a down payment to purchasing your house. There's a couple reasons you want to avoid being house poor. The first reason is that an expensive house is expensive to maintain. You have to spend more on repairs, more on property tax, on insurance. You have to spend more on utilities, and all those things will hurt you in your ability to invest and eventually retire early. The second thing is that having an expensive house will reduce your risk tolerance for fear of losing your house. So if it will make you afraid to take big risks in life. It will keep you strapped into your job so you will never leave. It will keep you from investing in other big opportunities, which will ultimately also hurt you in your ability to retire early. Rule number 4, buy a new Corolla and drive it for as long as possible. So what do I mean by this? I don't literally mean buy a new Corolla per se. I just use Corolla as an example of a cheap, reliable, compact car. And I do emphasize new for a couple reasons, and we'll get into that. A lot of financial gurus will tell you that to buy a used car over a new car, because a used car you could purchase for a fraction of the price and it'll give you a better bang for your buck. But there is a couple flaws to this logic. Number one is that the maintenance and repair costs will be much higher on a used car compared to a new car. Number two is that the fuel cost will probably also be higher. And number three is that a used car still depreciates, and if you buy the wrong used car, it can actually depreciate faster than a new Corolla will. So let's look at the maintenance and repair costs again. Like I said previously, the maintenance and repair costs are higher on a used car than a new car, but it's not just about the money, it's about the time as well. I don't want to go out and have to bring my car to the shop every month, figure out what's wrong with it, get ripped off by mechanics, and have to, just take my time away from me pursuing my other interests. I'd rather have a new car that I know is reliable, that will take me where I want to go, than worry about the headache of maintaining a used car. The second thing is that a used car is harder to negotiate than a new car. A new car, it's a commodity. What you can do is just, especially in the internet age, you can look for exactly what you want in your new car, the exact options, find them from 5 different dealerships and have them all bid against each other. And then you'll see that after going back and forth, you'll get a very good deal on a new car. You can't do this on a used car. If you want to buy a good deal on a used car, number one is that you have to know what you're looking at. If you want to buy from a private person, you have to try to avoid being ripped off, because you have to know, you have to see if the car is in good condition. And I'm not a car guy. I don't know if the car is in good condition or not. I'll have to hire a mechanic to look at the car, and that's extra cost. Alternatively, you can go to a dealership to buy a used car. Well, there's problems in this too, because the dealership has to make money. They have to pay their employees. They have to pay their rent. They have to purchase the car and then do repairs on them. So if they purchase a car for maybe $5,000, they'll have to sell the car to you for probably $7,000 to $8,000 just to break even. So they're probably going to try to sell the car to you for $9,000 or $10,000. That's a huge margin that you could have saved if you knew what you're doing. But I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to look into that. Thank you for making it past this far. You've gone through all the boring stuff. And the next 2 rules are going to focus on some more fun stuff on how I look at how I enjoy my money. So a lot of financial gurus will talk about how you should invest and save your money, but they don't really talk about how you should enjoy your money. So that's what my next 2 rules are about. And again, these rules are specifically for me. They're based around what's important to me. So your rules should be based on what's important to you. So let me get into it. Rule number 5 is don't sweat the small stuff. So if you want to go out to Starbucks and buy a latte, go for it. If you want to change the thermostat by 1 or 2 degrees, do it. Life is too short to be worrying about the small stuff. As long as you get the big decisions right, you don't have to sweat the small stuff. So the funny thing about this rule is that I came up with this rule like over 20 years ago. And at the time I lived in a 2-story house. And I don't know if it was the age difference between me and my sister being so large, but I would always listen to my older sister. And the thing that she would do is she would annoy me all the time about turning off a light in order to save money. So I would be downstairs intensely working on my homework when I hear, "Jeffrey, what? Turn off your light." She would literally be upstairs in her room, which was next to my room, telling me to turn off my light just so that she could teach me a lesson. I swore at the ripe old age of 10 years old, I swore that when I grew up, I would make enough money so that I would never have to worry about turning off a light again. Rule number 6, spare no expense to save the life of a loved one or a pet. Money is a tool to be used, it's not to be hoarded, but we have to be very careful about how we spend our money so that it is available when we need it to spend on the things that we deem most important to us. The most important thing to me is the relationship between me and my loved ones, including my pets. So about 8 years ago, my cat Cheetah over here, he had problems with his urinary tract. He had urinary blockages, and we had to take him to the vet probably half a dozen times. And eventually we took him to a specialist where we had to keep him overnight at the specialty vet for 2 nights. And all in, it probably cost around $4,000 to $5,000. And I happily paid the $4,000 or $5,000 happily, even though I wasn't making very much at the time. And today, 8 years later, here he is. He's still here, alive and kicking, happy and healthy, but fat, happy and healthy. And even 8 months ago, my other cat, Kitty, he was diagnosed with cancer, with intestinal cancer. And same story. We took him to the vet half a dozen times, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 later, diagnosed with cancer. And today, we spend probably $500 per month on his cancer treatment. And here he is. He's still happy and hopefully healthy. All right, so these are my rules as a recap. Rule number 1, you do not need a large cash reserve. Rule number 2, invest a larger percentage of your income as you get older. Rule number 3, do not become house poor. Rule number 4, buy a new Corolla and drive it for as long as possible. Rule number 5, don't sweat the small stuff. Rule number 6, spare no expense in order to save the life of a loved one or a pet. So I came up with these rules and they've been extremely beneficial to me. The ways that it's been beneficial to me is that these rules are customized to me. They're based around my needs, my goals, and what I find important to me. And the second thing is that it gives me clarity of thought. I'm no longer confused when I listen to other gurus. I can listen to their views and I can know that what they're saying is correct in their mind, but what I'm saying is correct in my mind. If you want to have clarity of thought and you want to have personal finance rules customized to you, What you want to do is you want to go out and get educated on the topic of personal finance. You can watch other YouTube channels, or you can subscribe to my channel where I talk about personal finance. After you get educated, come back to this video and comment below on what your rules of personal finance is. If you already have a firm grasp of the topic of personal finance, go ahead and comment below on what your rules are. Thanks for watching. Click the like button if you felt that this video was educational or entertaining, and I'll see you in the next video. Oops, let me see. Are you straight? Oh shit. Oh shit. God damn it. Okay, that looks straight.